this local high school had a Progress Pride flag hanging up in the classroom. It was the classroom where the Gay Straight Alliance Club met. And basically, what ended up going on was that they labeled the flag as political, claiming one student was uncomfortable by it, didn't want to pledge to it, but it wasn't even open when the pledging was going on. Regardless, this whole thing transpired and turned into, like, you know, I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. First time caller.
Oh, no, you're doing a great job.
Doing all this stuff. So I'm actually not involved in activism that much, but this took place at my middle school where I graduated from. I live very close to it, so I attended this rally in support of keeping the Progress Pride flag up. I just wanted to, like, outline the parts of the story that aren't really being touched upon. The counter-protesters that showed up, they were small in numbers, but their sentiment wasn't exactly anti-LGBT, but it was mostly anti-black and white exclusionary thought, which was very interesting to see.
How did that manifest itself?
So, funnily, like, I noticed that some of the counter-protesters were approaching, like, younger students and younger people and just starting to say things that I've heard mirror on, like, Fox News and whatnot about, you know, how political BLM is and the media separation and whatnot, which was really confusing because it wasn't about the media at all, and they kind of just, like, roped it into that, and I constantly had to, like, anchor them back to the conversation. But when they all... okay, I should have prefaced this, I'm sorry, but the regular LGBT flag they were okay with, but the Progress Pride flag they were not okay with because of the black and brown stripe inclusion. And when I pointed it out to them, they would just jump and pile on top and say, no, this is not what we're thinking. Like, we don't have a problem with that. We just have a problem with BLM, and it's overtly political. And when I got there, I should also mention that the whole prospect of the flag being political is nonsense, but they also had Blue Lives Matter flags confirmed in the school, and they also had a neo-confederate flag painted on one of the students' parking spaces. So it was interesting to see these counter-protesters, like, show up and not talk about the issue that they were showing up for.
Yeah.
Well, you know, what strikes me is that, you know, you hear about all the arguments we had, like, these statues are not political, these flags are not political. And the fact is that all of these things are representative of something. And it really just becomes what are we going to recognize as toxic, and what are we going to recognize as helpful to society? I mean, that's what's going on. I mean, is that flag political? I mean, I guess you could argue that it's political in the sense it's certainly not necessarily partisanly political, but it is symbolic. It is basically saying some recognition of, like, we have groups of people in this country who have marginal political power, marginal social power, in some instances, marginal economic power, and we recognize there's a deficiency. And that's basically it. And the neo-confederate flag, the Blue Lives Matter flags, they also represent something. They represent, like, white supremacy. They represent in another respect, both of them represent white supremacy. And, you know, sort of some notion of like celebrating the carceral state and the inequities in our society. I mean, that's what's going on. Yeah. You know, I mean, like, it is, I think the idea is, you know, I mean, I understand maybe the politicians have to sort of say, like, this is political or this is not political. But the bottom line is what we need to make a something explicit. What kind of society do we want to live in? Do we is there anybody out there who can deny that for, you know, our entire history of our country and ongoing, that black people, people of color, have been marginalized both economically and politically? Is there anybody who can, you know, out there say with a straight face that as a trans kid, or, you know, for generations of gay kids, like, you weren't ostracized and and up until very recently, and still ongoing in many states, you could get fired for being gay. You could be fired for being transgender. You could be denied housing if you were gay. You could be denied housing if you were transgender. I mean, these things are real, and to pretend that they don't exist is just a denial of the reality. And then it's really just a decision. Okay, well, we accept that these exist. We just find it repulsive to do anything about it.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I was getting from the whole counter protesters, is that they weren't really there to be, hey, we're explicitly against this policy, having the pride flag up in the first place. It's more like we just want to ventilate our anger towards, other communities, and just the frustrations we hear on the media, or they hear on the media, I should say, are just being echoed at that point by their little group. And they were there to instigate. It really felt like that, because it was just so far removed. I mean, they were removed from the groups, but it was only the counter protesters that approached the people in support, and it wasn't the other way around. Yeah. And it was just a whole spectacle to see. And we also had there was some guy with a Trump whole truck decked out, driving around in circles around the middle school to no avail. And it was just these are the people that are complaining about the high gas prices, and here's how he's spending his Tuesday afternoon. It was just.
Is he rolling coal?
It was interesting to see.
Is he rolling coal?
I think so. It was a white pickup, so, probably wasn't the rolling coal one, but,
All right.
It was just, there's an incredible side to the story that's not being told on, the ground.
My quick question for you is this math teacher, because I'm reading the New York Post article on it, and they begin with saying a woke Long Island teacher was forced to remove 2 pride flags from her classroom. They don't say, but is this teacher gay herself?
I believe so, yeah. She got into the school after I graduated, so I'm not familiar with that teacher specifically, but she is the president of the Gay Straight Alliance Club, and
so
I believe she is gay herself. So, yeah. And they were just specifically outing and targeting her, and it just, the whole thing is just worthy of an investigation, I should say.
All right, well, appreciate the phone call. We'll keep an eye on it.
Thanks for taking me. Appreciate it.